morning, sports fans. Welcome to this October 28th edition of the Courier Sports Department's Paperboyz. I'm Doug Newhoff. Over here we have Jim Sullivan. To my right is Nick Pateros, and to my far right is Jim Nelson. Well, guys, let's get started with a little college football. How about those Panthers?
Boy, that was just what the doctor ordered for UNI. On the brink of basically having their season over. They make a tremendous effort, especially on the defensive side. And basically they have new life. They couldn't have asked for anything more. It'd be interesting to find out, and maybe Nellie can address this a little more, exactly what John Stiegelmeier was thinking at the end of the game there, going for the wins of the tie, but that is what it is. You take advantage of those breaks, and I think UNI deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that. Now they get to do it all over again Saturday against what I think is a much improved South Dakota team.
Yeah, you know, Coach Stiegelmeier said in his heart when they were driving down the field, he thought the momentum was all on their side and they were going to go in and score and win the game. And that was his thought when they went for 4th and 1 down in the 10. And he truly thought they were going to pick up that yard and go right in and score. And you know, and I think his quote after the game was that, you know, we played well enough to win. I didn't coach well enough to win. So he was second-guessing himself on that call.
Do you think the UNI defense was surprised that they went for it there? You know, just your thoughts on them being able to make that play?
You know, I don't think they were surprised because, you know, I talked to a couple guys after the game, and I don't think we huddled. We just knew what we had to do, and, you know, we'd seen that formation before, and we, you know, and then I talked to him on Monday. I talked to Carter again on Monday. I go, how did that last play develop? Because you ran in basically unblocked. He goes, well, there must have been something going on with the guard and the tackle because the guard went one way and the tackle went the other way, and I went right through the hole, and he hit the guy behind the line of scrimmage. He blew it up, and then Kilfoy kind of finished it off there.
Well, I didn't feel like UNI got a lot of breaks at North Dakota State or at Illinois State, so, you know, in one respect, they were due for a few things to go their way, and a great win for them to pull that one out. Still a little concerned about the offense. They're not really getting much done, or at least not consistently. You know, they get a few runs out of Bailey, but they don't get much else out of their running game. The passing game is sporadic at best. They need to take some steps forward, and, you know, I wonder if they'll give Eli Dunn a chance here now. It sounds like maybe we've seen the end of Sawyer Cole-Morgan for the season. So it leaves them, and I guess Dalton Demos has an ACL injury or whatever, so their quarterback situation went from having 4 pretty good ones now to Aaron Bailey and Eli Dunn, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, you know, I think I liked what they did, what they tried to do against South Dakota State, and they went deep several times. You know, there's a, you know, Therese Fountain, you know, he laughed it off on Friday, and he goes, yeah, I want that one back. They could have easily been ahead 10-0 at halftime. Fountain dropped one in the end zone, and they tried to go deep several times. I think that really makes the safeties, you know, respect their run game, makes the cornerbacks play honest, and the linebackers play honest. So if they're throwing those deep balls, like maybe, hopefully, eventually down the road here, they can hit a couple of those. But that's opening up that read option. And, you know, as long as Bailey keeps on hammering off, you know, 100-yard games. And I thought Tyvis Smith, you know, he only had 12 carries, he had 54 yards. He's averaging almost 5 yards a carry. I think when they needed him, Tyvis Smith did a good job.
That's a guy that they talked about a number of times. Mark Farley has it. They thought he could be the guy that maybe not replace David Johnson, but certainly help them a lot in the running game. And I think you touched another important point, Nellie, that for all the talk of the quarterbacks, the wide receivers have been at best inconsistent, and sometimes they've really hurt UNI's cause. I mean, we talk about drop passes with Brown, with Fountain. There's not a lot of depth there. They're playing defensive guys on that side of the ball, so they're still searching for answers there. And finally, you have the offensive line. You can speak to how well they may or may not have played this last Saturday, but when they've had trouble in the past 2 years, it's protecting the quarterback and opening consistent holes, and then part of that, at least, is the offensive line.
Mm-hmm. That's true. There's 2 things there that I think are going to help with the run game and the pass game. Is Darian Miller got hurt early, I think, in the Western Illinois game. Didn't play at all. He dressed, but didn't play at all against South Dakota. I think he's that little guy they like to split out there and, you know, bring him out of the backfield. And then I think you're going to see more of DeAndre Hall and Macton DeLaurent playing receiver when they get more comfortable in that package. It seems like sometimes when they called on that package last week, every time they ran it, they were open, but they were scrambling to get in. It seemed like all of a sudden they called the package, and those 2 were sitting in the defensive huddle and they weren't quite ready. I think the communication will be better this week. I think you can see that. I mean, they're 2 of their best athletes, and they put them out there, and they got pretty good hand. You know, and DeAndre doesn't have that right arm or right hand brace on anymore, so he can go out and catch. I mean, he was wide open, and I'm surprised early in that the first quarter, I think it was, or maybe it was the second quarter, where he caught his one pass and he got hit and his helmet flying off. It really looked like targeting. They could have been first and goal on that one and another score there. So, but I think, it's coming. They haven't been consistent. They need to hit some of those passes, and the receivers need to help them out, and they need to block. They need, across the board, they need be a little bit better offensively.
They face a visit from South Dakota this Saturday in the Dome. This is a South Dakota team that went up to Fargo and took down North Dakota State, so it won't be a pushover again. What are they up against here with the Coyotes?
It's another team. They just do they play very steady. They don't hurt themselves. They lost their best running back a couple weeks ago, but then last week a true freshman stepped in and rushed for 129 yards, Michael Frederick. They're not going to, and then last week against Missouri State, and this again, Missouri State, who I think is a step below everybody this year. It's an off year for them.
Two steps
below. They held Missouri State to 155 total yards last week, fewest by a South Dakota team has allowed since 2011. They're going to be another solid team. They're not going to beat themselves, and the UNI is going to have to make some plays and create some breaks.
All right, Iowa State dropped a 45-27 game to Baylor Saturday. For all the other issues that the Cyclones apparently had going on, that's not too bad an effort against the number 2 team in the country.
No, it really isn't. It turned out to be interesting, and we really didn't know all the reasons why until later. They got behind early. It looked like Baylor was going to blow them out, and then they made a quarterback switch going from Sam Richardson to Joel Lanning, and Lanning performed very, very well. Something like 11 of 17 for 3 touchdowns. They made it a little bit more interesting in the second half. Baylor had a lead, but that's 45 points is about 20 under Baylor's average. I think they held them under yardage, and they put some points on the board belatedly, although that was belated, I guess. So now they look like things are going forward. Then Paul Rhodes walks into his Monday morning press conference, announces that Mark Mangino is no longer the offensive coordinator, and Todd Sturdy's in. What sort of effect that will have, I don't know. We'll find out together, I guess, when Texas comes to town. But certainly they've gone in a new direction at quarterback with Lanning. He's looked good in limited duty, looked good in extended duty, and we'll see what he can do against the Longhorns.
You and Nellie both have some experience with Mark Mangino. Is he just a hard guy to get along with, or is it just a personality conflict there, or what's going on?
Personally, I would say if you meet him face to face, no, he seems very accommodating. He's obviously a very smart fellow. He's well spoken. He can explain offensive football as well as anybody. Now, behind the scenes, what is he like? I suspect there's a pretty good ego there. He's been a head coach. He's been a much praised offensive coordinator. So there's that going. There's that dynamic going. What happened between him and Paul Rhodes, I don't know. There's been a lot of speculation. Was it the quarterback change? Was it play calling? Was it something else? I don't know, but I suspect that the play calling might have had a lot to do with it, because Iowa State, in 2 critical games, Iowa, TCU, started off well and then sputtered. Didn't score at all in the second half against Iowa. Didn't score in the last 3 quarters against TCU. And part of that, apparently, was an inability to make the adjustments to what the defense was doing. So I think there are a lot of things in play there. Certainly an ego clash, certainly a philosophical clash of some sort, and perhaps a clash over who should be playing quarterback.
Yeah, and Mangino's come back, if you go back and you want to drag up old dirt, Kansas, he had some issues, with players and being abusive and stuff. I don't know if that's any of the case there. You're just dragging up old dirt there. But, he, like I said, going along with that ego, sometimes it's his way and maybe not, there's another way to look at it.
Well, he does a good job of wearing out his welcome, I guess, wherever he goes these days. But, anyway, the Cyclones have Texas coming to town this week for a 6 p.m. game Saturday. The Longhorns have won a couple in a row, including a big win over Oklahoma. They appear to be playing better. How do you see this one?
It'll be interesting for a couple reasons. One, I think this will be sort of a back-to-the-future game for Iowa State. I think the air raid offenses are at least for this weekend, a thing of the past. Texas, statistically speaking, isn't a particularly good team. They're ranked at or near the bottom in a lot of Big 12 categories, coincidentally enough, where Iowa State is. But you have to believe that they have some athletes. They have some guys who are good talent, maybe not developed enough, but certainly good talent. They've been playing well of late. I don't think anyone expected them to knock off OU after the way they started the season, yet they did that. They played very, very well against Kansas State, won a game there, mostly on the ground. So we really don't know what Longhorn team is going to show up here. Is it going to be the team that's won 3 games in a row, or is it going to be the team that sputtered badly against Notre Dame and a couple other opponents? I suspect it will be the team that's won 3 games in a row, in Iowa State, I think, will have to be ready for a pretty strong effort.
Looks like Texas is playing pretty good defense, maybe building their progress on those kind of fundamentals, a running game and good defensive football.
I would think, and it's interesting, their leading rusher is the quarterback, Gerard Hurd. He's averaging about 5 yards a carry, 70.6 a game. That's why I say it's sort of a back in the future thing here. I don't think they're going to scare teams a lot with the passing game. They have a couple of quarterbacks who run the ball pretty well, and so I think that's going to be a key, is shutting down that. And Iowa State, for once, on paper at least, it looks like they won't have to score 55 points to win this. It may be in the neighborhood of 28 to 35. Iowa State can do that. It's just a question of whether they can, Lanning gets settled in, whether Mike Warren can have the big game, and whether Alan Lazard is healthy. That's another question. He missed the last game. They want to get by without him, but I really think over the long haul, they need him to complement Bundridge and Montgomery and some of the other young guys they have at wide receiver.
Turns out to be kind of a big game for Iowa State. I mean, they really need to find a way to pick a win up this week and get back on the right track.
Schedule doesn't get any easier after this.
Iowa has, they're back in action this week. They had a bye week last week. They host Maryland Saturday afternoon at 2:30. Put that 7-0 and number 10 ranking on the line. From where I sit, the Hawkeyes should get to 8-0. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you would think. Maryland is another interesting story, to put it mildly. They fired their coach, Randy Edsall, I think a couple of weeks ago. They're in the middle of a losing streak, and they brought in Mike Loxley. And you might ask, who is Mike Loxley? Well, he was a head coach. He's been a Maryland guy. He was a head coach at New Mexico, where he posted a 2-26 record, had some off-the-field issues, and got fired. He's on Maryland staff. They hand him the interim job when Edsall gets fired, and they played Penn State and almost beat Penn State. It's a 31-30 game. So apparently they're going to play better. Now, what that means for this weekend, who knows? I think mentally they'll be okay, but do they have enough talent to stay with Iowa? And more to the point, is Iowa going to take this team seriously? And we hear a lot of talk about we're taking care of business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but players also know who they're up against, and Iowa may have its mind down the road, I don't know, but I'm sure they've been reminded that this week that was a Maryland team that beat them a year ago.
Fairly handily. It seemed like, I think Iowa got up and then at Maryland just ran open, wasn't it? And Iowa, I think out of Iowa City yesterday is Ike Bucker is not playing, and neither is Jordan Kanziri.
Right, Ike has a high ankle sprain that, those, you know how those things are. They take time, and you never know how they're going to heal and how fast you're going to come back from those. So, yeah, he's out, but they do get a couple people back. They were talking about Boone Myers maybe back this week, and Beathard's healed up a little bit, so physically they should be okay.
Yeah, that bye week couldn't have came at a better time for Iowa, really, and you have to think coming off the bye week, they'll be focused and ready to go and trying to, keep what's been a tremendous season going.
Something else that came up during the UNI game, just listening to that game on the radio, it just seemed like it had a lot more flow because there wasn't instant replay available. The games that they've had previous to that, like Illinois State and North Dakota State and Western Illinois, I mean, there were 3, 4, 5 stoppages for instant replays, and the calls are never reversed. I mean, they just don't have enough camera angles at the FCS level to give the guys a definitive answer about a certain play. So 9 times out of 10, they just go with what the play was called on the field. So I'm kind of wondering, what purposes does it really serve at the FCS level to have instant replay there? I mean, basically it just interrupts the flow of the game. It kind of makes some coaches a little bit angry here and there because they may have seen a play that they're absolutely 100% sure was called incorrectly, but they can't get it overturned.
Well, the short answer, there would be none. I mean, it would seem like it would have absolutely no value. Do I expect them to stay with it? Yeah, I think they will until they absolutely have to get rid of it. But you bring up a fair point. It does affect the game. I think the idea was with replay that the effect on the flow of the game itself, not the call, but the game would be minimal. Well, we're not seeing that, and Mark Farley has talked about that.
Yep.
Going back, I think, to last year. He was a little concerned about that. And I think that concern has only grown because they are supposed to be running a hurry-up offense. Well, you can't run a hurry-up offense if the officials won't let you hurry up. So there's that problem. My feeling is that all those things are valid concerns. I'm not sure how they'll address them. The only possible way would be to add more cameras. I don't think that's gonna happen either.
That's not cost effective.
No, so I think we're stuck with it for a while until the powers that be decide they have to go in a different direction.
They probably just need to get more efficient with it, you know, if you don't have the angles, you can't make a decision, just decide right away, you know, you're gonna keep the call, but then you still have the replay in case there's something blatantly obvious that you can change.
And I think if they're gonna have it at one venue in the league, then all the venues gotta have it, if they're gonna have it, you know. And I know this is a small level at USHL, you know, each team had to buy their own video system and cameras and install it because they have a replay now in USHL. So it could be one thing with the league mandates that you gotta have this many cameras and this many angles, and, but, you know, if South Dakota State, you know, if UNI and everybody else has in South Dakota State, you're thinking they're gonna say, okay, South Dakota State, you gotta up your game, which they are. Their stadium is in progress. As soon as the last game's played in the year, they're gonna be tearing that down, and then it'll be a brand new
Not a moment too
stadium.
soon either.
Yeah, apparently they are pouring a lot of money into football up in,
Nice new
South Dakota State.
indoor facility there.
The other thing with the cameras is I think it's, there will come a situation where having the cameras and the replay available will probably make a very important impact on an important game, but just the chances and the frequency of that happening just don't seem to be very great. So I guess that's what we have and that's where we're going, and I don't see adding a lot of cameras. It's just not very cost effective with the personnel and the equipment required, so that is what it is, I guess. World Series, game one last night, lasted forever. Royals pulled one out 5-4 in the end, and it was kind of fun, you know, game to watch. I mean, it was really a good baseball game. Inside the park home run on a ball that should have been caught right off the bat. I would make my case again for a team error. There's no way that guy should get credit for a home run. There's no way that pitcher should get charged with an earned run. But it is what it is, I guess. And then Gordon hits a big home run in, what, the eighth inning to tie it?
Bottom nine, I believe, wasn't it?
No, was it the eighth, or was it the ninth?
It was
Anyway,
late.
It was late,
inning
yeah,
home
it
run
went
to tie the
14
game.
innings, I'm still a
It was
little
at
foggy.
bedtime, that's all I know.
Yeah, I think it's the ninth inning actually, because they kept showing the close-ups of Hosmer after he made that error, and he was
Yeah.
gonna be the GOAT, and I think he couldn't have got out of the dugout fast enough to greet Gordon after that home
Yeah.
run.
And then we end up with, who's the pitcher for Kansas
Chris
City?
Young.
Chris
Young,
Young.
yeah, 3 scoreless innings, hitless innings, I believe, for Kansas City against Bartolo Colon. Nobody would have ever guessed that those two would be deciding game one of the World Series, but they did, and it was a great game. Thoughts on that and where we go from here?
Just what an odd cast of characters you had finishing out that game from pitching standpoint. You got Chris Young, the 6'10" guy that can barely throw 90, and then Bartolo Colon, who's been around for like 50 years, it seems like, put on a few pounds, but still can somehow get outs. It's crazy that it went that long without either team producing a run off of those two.
Pretty sure they gave him a new arm when he went back to the Dominican Republic 3 or 4 years ago, and the guy's amazing.
The Royals just do not die. That's the thing. They've been in this situation, I don't know how many times now in the postseason. They always seem to find a way to not only survive but prosper. I don't know how many home runs Alex Gordon's had in the postseason, but I can't imagine there's been anyone bigger than that one against Familia, who's been lights out as a closer.
Yeah.
And on top of that, not directly beat Matt Harvey, but Matt Harvey was a starting pitcher. Now he's not going to be available again until, what, game 4, game 5, or whatever it is. Scott Boras decides he can pitch again. And,
That's the question with Kansas City, is Young was supposed to be game 4 starter, so now who's game 4
It sounds like
starter?
he will still start in
He's
game 4.
still
That's the
starting.
plan now, I think so. But just a remarkable testament to their ability to overcome adversity, to stay in there mentally and then win games.
They just keep coming. I mean, we've seen it throughout the whole postseason. I mean, they've been down late in several games and found a way to pull it out. What I really enjoyed about the game was just how evenly matched these teams are, and it's not just, you know, put them on and knock them in. It's stealing a base here, it's taking an extra base, it's scoring from first on a single. I mean, it's just, there's all kinds of plays, little drama things, intricacies behind the scenes that are getting done with these two teams that don't get done with all teams that get to this level.
Had things gone a little bit differently, the Mets had won, one of the biggest plays would have been David Wright stealing second base.
Right.
I think, and,
Yeah.
you know, David Wright's a guy coming off some fairly serious health issues, and here it is, the season on the line, he makes a play like that. So I think that speaks well to the quality and versatility of these two teams.
Fun stuff. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Our staff will be out at high school football playoff games tonight. We've got 24 teams in our circulation area that'll be playing. Some great games. There'll be some pretty excited teams tonight and some pretty disappointed teams tonight. As always, you can catch all the action at www.wcfcourier.com or in our print editions. Till next week.
Now, did you go to bed?